Hey everyone, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. I am Justin, aka Soft Pillows, and
This is Derek, back to Bird That Steals from our little hiatus here for our side quest last week.
yeah, I still got to get it posted, but I'm running out of storage on my computer, so I need to pick up like an external hard drive and move stuff over. So things might be a little slower as far as editing goes,
Oh, I suppose this might take up a little bit of space, huh?
just a wee bit. And the YouTube videos don't help because they're like almost 2 or 3 gigs each. So but yeah, no worries. I don't know if you've noticed already, Mr. Garney, that kind of in a silly mood today. Okay.
I did notice a little bit.
So for some really fucked up reason, I went to take a nap at 5 o'clock last night. Didn't wake up till 8 this morning. Yeah, I don't know where
Holy
the
shit.
fuck that came from, why I was so tired. I just fucking slept. So feel pretty energized.
Well, yeah, that's good. Some people might call that a small coma.
Just a little comatose, right?
But hey, I mean, if that's how long you slept, your body obviously needed it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember waking up, 3 or 4 times throughout that period of sleep, but each time I'm like, yeah, I'm so tired, I'm going back to bed. So probably it's getting closer. Right.
Sometimes you got to rest.
It's getting closer to, moving. We got like a couple weeks left before we move, and we're still not packed, which is fine. It doesn't take that long to pack really, but it's just a lot of mental juggling on things. So I've been sleeping.
Yeah, packing is. I mean, I guess it kind of depends on how much stuff you have, but it. I don't know. It seems like you always find you have more stuff than you thought you did when it comes
Yeah,
time to
I think
move.
it's a combination of what stuff are we going to keep, what stuff are we donating, what stuff is trash, you know. Um so it's all of that on top of packing, and yeah, it's a little overwhelming, which is fine. I'm sure it'll be easier once we're actually moved out, because then there's the whole cleaning of the place. This house hasn't been deep cleaned in years.
Well, it'll still be exciting to move into a new place, and it's one of those. It's kind of like a fresh start, I guess. It's always and it'll
Right.
be yours. You know, that's a good feeling versus renting.
Right, yeah. It's an asset that belongs to me. So, yeah. And once it's paid off, if the kids need a place to stay and we've moved on, then they can stay there.
That's true.
But yeah, I guess what about you? What's been new? What's been up?
Not. It's been a pretty busy weekend. I worked both jobs Friday night, so got home about 10 o'clock. Went to bed. Yesterday, took the family to Valley Fair. I guess for those outside of the area, it'd be kind of like a Six Flags type deal, an amusement park. Um, we're there basically all day. Got home last night. Went to bed. Woke up this morning, and my wife and I went for a 4 mile run. So and then I mowed the lawn, and now we're
Well,
tired.
then there you go. The weather was decent yesterday too, so been nice for riding.
Yeah, it was. Temperature was really good. It was just kind of overcast all day, so we weren't getting beat up by the sun. But yeah, it was a pretty good day.
That's good. I haven't been to Valley Fair in years.
Yeah, it'd been a couple of years since I had gone to, so it was fun to go back, and it was pretty busy. So I think if we try to go next year, we might just go take a day off during
Yeah.
the week and go when lines aren't that bad because most of the stuff was probably 45
Oh,
minute
gross.
wait, which I guess you compare to like if you went to like Universal or something like that, that's probably kind of standard about any time I would guess. But um, yeah, it was still fun
That's
though.
good. Are there pops still like $7 a pop?
We packed a cooler and had like sandwiches and bottles of water and stuff. We got some Dippin' Dots ice cream, and for the kids each got their own, and then Kelly and I split a large one, and it was like $25 for all three.
I guess it could be worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you know things are going to be more expensive
Yeah.
there.
That's true. Cool. Well, I mean, what do you say we should get this show on the road?
Let's do it.
You want me to take the epigraph or you want her?
Why don't you go ahead? You can take
All
it.
right. I just got to get to that page. Fuck page to start on?
Well, I guess we kind of have two of them,
We
don't
do, yeah, because we're starting the sub book, the Fete.
So you want to take the one for the book, and I'll take the one for the chapter,
Sounds
and then just continue into my summarization.
Sounds good. The flaying of Fander, she-wolf of winter, marks the dawn of Getaron. The priestesses race down the streets, strips off wolf furs streaming from their hands, banners are unfurled, the noises and smells of the market rise into the morning air, masks are donned, the citizens discard the year's worries and dance across the day into night. The Lady of Spring is born anew. It is as if the gods themselves pause their breath.
It is said that the matron's blood, like ice, brought forth into this world a birthing of dragons, and this flowing river of fate brought light into dark and dark into light, unveiling at last in cold, cold eyes the children of chaos. So starting off, well, this is episode 21 of the, I guess, the main quest here, the main objective. I guess episode 22 if you count the side quest, but this will be chapter 20. Morellio marveled at Ralik's healed wound. He figured whatever powder he used on himself must have been the reason for the healing. Still, he lost a lot of blood, and it would take time to recover. Precious time they didn't really have. He wondered if Ralik would still be able to kill Orr. He made his way down the street, dawn still a couple hours away. The celebration would begin at sunrise and go well into night, as was Daru custom. It was the end of the year of 5 tusks, and the year of the moon's tears would replace it. A massive machine marked the cycle of an age and named the years. A gift from Icarium over 1,000 years ago. Mammoth thought Icarium was in part Jaghut. He rode a Jaghut horse and had a trell at his side, and that seemed to be evidence enough for him. Morellio wondered at the significance of the names for the years. The incoming and outgoing names held some prophecy to the seers. The boar, Tenorok, his tusks were named Hate, Love, Laughter, War, and Tears, and he wondered which tusk was prominent, though he thought the New Year's name seemed to answer the question. He was, after all, a skeptic on astrology. With Moonspawn showing up, it did put the name into some new light, and the local scholars were irritated by it. As he rounded the corner to the Phoenix Inn, he ran into Krupp. Krupp says what luck to run into each other here. Now there is no need to search for each other. Murillo noticed something at Krupp's feet and asked him what they were. He replies, gifts for him and Ralik for the fete, and asks him if they look expensive enough or if he's embarrassed by them. Murillo says he won't distract him. Why are there 3 masks? Well, one is for Krupp. Murillo tells Krupp that he isn't coming. Krupp says like hell he isn't going. If he doesn't go to Lady Simtal's event, she won't show up because she'd be so ashamed. Murillo says that Ralik will kill him. Krupp says, how will he manage to do that when he won't be able to recognize him with the mask on? Murillo gives up, and Krupp gives him the masks and says that Baruch doesn't need to wait on a message that he can't mention. As Krupp is about to leave, Murillo asks Krupp if he's seen Call. Krupp says yes, he's resting from his ordeal, and that he was healed magically by a stranger, brought in by another stranger, who got another stranger, so there were 5 strangers in total. Krupp tries to leave again, and Murillo stops him again and says he knows who he is. He knows he's the eel. Krupp is sweating and wipes it from his forehead. He says he has everyone fooled, but not him. Krupp waves his fingers around and casts a spell. Morellio blinks and is dizzy and doesn't remember what they had been talking about, and thanks Krupp for the masks. Comments that he's glad Call is doing okay, and he better get going to check on Rallick. Krupp smiles and says to have a good night, and he'll see him at the fete. So there it is. There's the payoff we've been waiting for.
You think so? What makes you think so?
I mean, I think that Krupp wiping his memory of their conversation about him being the eel is confirmation in my eyes.
I didn't even look at it that way. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, not that I didn't agree with you. Totally thought that Krupp is the eel the whole time, but I just thought it was very slippery of Krupp to just kind of, oh, well, I don't want to have this conversation, so I'm gonna, wave my little short sausage-like fingers here.
Maybe slippery like an eel.
Right, slippery like a little eel. Yeah, no, that's good, but for some reason that type of confirmation never occurred to me, which I don't know why. That was a good catch. Good.
Yeah, it was just like as soon as I read that, I was like, there it is, and I feel like if somehow there was a twist and it wasn't him, it would just be kind of a lot of work for. I don't know that the payoff would be worth it. I guess if it wasn't Krupp.
Oh, right.
To me, it wouldn't make sense at that point.
Right, to go back and like explain all the things that would have made the reader think it was Krupp.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think that you're right. But I mean, there's still a lot of mystery around the eel / Krupp, right? I mean, like what all has he been involved in this whole time that hasn't even been revealed, really.
Right.
But
a couple. Go ahead.
No, I was just. Sorry? I had a butt there, but I didn't have anything for that butt.
No handful to grab.
Nope.
I was just to say a couple other things that kind of I picked up. The New Year's name, the year of the moon's tears. So it seems kind of ominous. Is Moonspawn going to take a beating here? I guess. I mean, we don't have a whole lot of this book, so it would seem.
No, but I guess like that.
For their.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say for some sort of like major. I guess I'm not really expecting a major battle here to close out this book or anything. There's got to be some sort of action, but I don't think it's going to be, like the battle we saw towards the beginning, at Pale.
Right.
But is something going to happen with Moonspawn here where, it's weeping or something like that?
I mean, I think on a more like layered type of thought, what I got from that is, you remember how Rake was explaining to Baruch how like the Tistiande just don't more or less have like a reason to live kind of a thing, like they're just existing. I feel like this is kind of like in comparison to that, like Moon's tears, you shed a tear for being able to empathize with maybe what the Tistiande are going through, is kind of more or less what I got from that, even though that's probably not right. But I mean, it's kind of hard as a reader to not empathize with that type of mentality, I guess that's just kind of where I go. Or it could very well be that like, Rake and this supposed Jaghut tyrant do battle, and whatever is Rake is, from what I understand and what I remember, is anticipating to not be able to defeat him, but to weaken him, which can only mean one thing, right? So does that have something to do with the year of the moon's tears? Like Moonspawn loses their beloved lord and leader.
Yeah, that could be.
I mean, it's definitely foreshadowing. I don't know what else it would be, but what specifically, I guess, we just kind of have to read and find out, right?
Yeah, or I guess maybe we're just grasping at straws that aren't really there is the other possibility, but I think it's got to mean something.
Right. So maybe you and I are aligned with kind of how Morellio feels in this chapter, because he seems to feel like there is some significance of the names for the years, but kind of like caps it off with overall, I'm kind of a skeptic about astrology, which I am as well. So I kind of understand where he's coming from.
Right. Yeah, I'm not reading my horoscope every day or anything. Actually, I hardly ever do such a thing, but
Yeah.
once in a while, I don't know. It's kind of like a fortune cookie. They're fun to do once in a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, don't get me wrong, it's entertaining, but to call it some type of religion or a way to live life or to judge other people, that part drives me crazy. And it's only because I have some personal experiences with being judged based on the month I was born in.
Oh yeah, it seems like a load of crap, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
the other thing, what do you suppose a trell is? I don't remember that being talked about before. It must be some sort of people, species, tribe, something along those lines. But I don't remember them being mentioned.
No,
Or
you're
maybe I'm just not remembering and they did.
no, you're right. The Trell has not been. I mean, if it's been mentioned, it wasn't anything significant enough for us to touch base on. But I don't think that it has been brought up before. Um, it's either like a group of people or it's some type of object, kind of like the bone phone. You know, some
The
type of
bone phone.
bone phone. Yeah, some type of something. You know, that accompanies him, but what it could be, I don't know. Or kind of like the Jag Huts finished, like something like that, some type of like companion item.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure it's something we'll find out a little something about, anyways,
Yeah, I would
at some point.
imagine. Um, but according to Mammoth, didn't he say he was like part Jag Hut or something like that?
Garium?
Yeah, Ikarim was part Jag Hut. So maybe it's not necessarily the Trell is any type of Jag Hut means, but from whatever type of what he's mixed with, so to speak.
Yeah, sounds like must have some Jagut blood. I mean, if you're riding a Jagut horse, it sounds like you must be a descendant to some extent.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I guess this whole the beginning of this chapter just made me think of like a masquerade party. You know how like sometimes you see that in like TV shows or movies or something like that. And I just
Yeah, I think that's definitely what this is going for.
yeah, I feel I feel very intrigued and I hope that Steven Erickson describes what type of masks these guys or what Krupp has given Morellio and Ralik because I almost feel like it's going to have something to do with their character, kind of like a extension of who they are.
I th- I think you're going to be right on that. And later on in this chapter, we do kind of get. Now that you mention that, I guess something that I would take as maybe a kind of a hint towards that. But we'll save that for later when we get there.
I'm searching for answers, so I look forward to that. I guess I don't recall that.
Do you think they will have karaoke at this party? They could sing "You Used to Call Me on the Bone Phone."
uh, I'm at a bone phone trying to call home. Yeah, that was the only song I could think of that had phone in it. But
Oh, I was thinking I can't. I don't even know the name of the song, but it's "He Used to Call Me on the Cell Phone,"
oh,
like a hip hop song or whatever. He used to
oh,
call me on the bone phone.
gotcha. No, both of those work really well. I like that. We should come up with like a now hits featuring wherever we can put bone phone in there.
We could work that in some different ways, I suppose.
But I don't know. I like the whole idea of that, there's a festival happening and everyone's wearing masks and I don't know. I've always enjoyed like that premise of that type of party. So I can envision it pretty
Didn't you
well.
actually go to like a masquerade party not terribly long ago?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I guess a little bit more grandeur type of stuff with like music.
Oh, so like you want to wear like a suit like you were sinking on the Titanic, but wear a mask.
That's right.
A big grand staircase.
Yep, that's right. Did you just say a big Paran staircase?
No,
Oh, I was okay.
but you did.
Ah,
But yeah, I think the biggest thing on this section, just kind of the reveal of Krupp. Like I was like fist pumping as I read that because I was like, yes, I called it and I knew it.
yeah, and from a long ass fucking time ago. Like
Oh yeah,
that's been a hunch that you've been chasing for many chapters now. Probably since we were like 1/3 through the book. And
yeah, probably somewhere around there.
probably gotta feel pretty good that your theory was right. Or at least for the most part pointing that direction.
Yeah,
Not conclusive to the reader, but uh if one has been paying attention as close as we have, um pretty big payoff.
yeah. It felt like it was just like I guess like a personal victory. I guess.
Personal victory. Okay. Yeah, cool. I mean, I liked the introduction to this chapter. I felt like it set things up nicely.
Yeah.
But I guess if you're ready,
Well,
I'm ready to move on.
yeah. Take her away.
Baruch's features were darkening as he studied the Tistiande lounging in the chair across from him. Baruch says that he doesn't think it's a good idea. Rake raises an eyebrow at this question and responds that he understands that this festival includes wearing disguise, and questions Baruch if he questions his taste. Baruch snaps at Rake and tells him that he doesn't doubt that his costume will be suitable, especially if he dresses as a Tistiande warlord. Baruch admits that it's the council members he's worried about, because they are not fools. Rake asks Baruch if he would point out the council members who are working to pave the way for the Empress, asking Baruch if he's far off the mark. Sourly, Baruch tells him that he is not far off the mark, but Baruch has that issue handled. Rake is like, yeah, motherfucker, this brings me to the next reason for wanting to attend the Lady Scimitar's fete. Rake points out that Baruch had said that all of the city's power will be there. Rake assumes this also means Baruch's Torud Cabal. Baruch tells Rake that some will attend. However, due to Rake's debacle with the Assassins Guild has made them question their alliance with Moonspawn, and that they'll not appreciate Rake's attendance. Rising, and with his smile returning, Rake tells Baruch that he would like to attend. Baruch's gaze focused on Rake and asks if he expects a convergence of power at this fete. Rake admits this is true, and he'd like to be there in the event something does happen. And if this fete is publicly known, then it is likely that the Empire's agents will be there as well. And if they wanted to take out the heart of Jerujistan, then they have a good opportunity to do so. Baruch's only reply to this was to tell Rake that he had hired extra guards. After a pause of thinking, Baruch also accepts Rake's request and tells Rake that he'll have him as his guest at Lady Scimitar's fete. Baruch sits up and walks towards the window. Rake follows. Baruch begins to tell the story about the history around the turning of a new year. Rake interjects and tells the story, to which Baruch was surprised at Rake's knowledge, which gave Baruch a dozen questions. Rake continued on. Rake warns Baruch to heed Ikarim's gifts. Because 1,000 years isn't as long as one would think, Rake tells Baruch that Ikarim had visited him 800 years ago in the company of the Trell, Mappo, and Osric, or Oseric. Rake recalls that Osric and him had an old argument. At this point, Rake is kind of spacing out, lost in memories. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door, and both turn to see Roald enter the room. Roald tells Baruch that Mamet has awakened and appears refreshed, and that Krupp has delivered a message from the eel, and would Baruch like to hear it? The message from the eel is conveyed. Roald asks Baruch if he should send in Mamet. Baruch simply tells Roald that if he's able to. Rake and Baruch banter about the eel in Darujistan. When Mamet enters, Mamet greets Rake and explains to Rake his excitement to finally meet him. Baruch tells Mamet that they were worried about him with all the elder magic surrounding him. Mamet admits that he was snared for a bit, and that by remaining dormant, the Jaghut stirring could not detect him. Baruch asks how many days do they have left. Mamet explains that they have 2, maybe 3 days before the tyrant fully returns to life. Mamet sees some wine on the fireplace mantle and walks over to grab it. Drinking deeply, he asks Baruch if he has a word about his nephew Crocus. Baruch, in fear, asks him to say his name again. Mamet says that his nephew's name was Crocus. Baruch face palms and calls himself a fool. Mamet all casually says, "Oh, you mean the matter of the coin bearer?" Baruch was shocked. Rake interrupts and asks Mamet if he'll be at the fete. Mamet tells him that he will. Rake tells him that they'll talk later that night. He puts on his gloves and then departs. Baruch had no time to think of Rake's sudden departure, which was his first mistake.
I guess my statement, if Rake's like 7 or 8 feet tall, right? Like, I don't care what costume you put on somebody like that. Like, they're gonna stick out like a sore thumb.
Right. And especially if he's got, Dragnapur on his back, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I didn't even think of that. That was a good giggle. That was a good laugh.
Yeah. What else did you think?
I think that Baruch and Rake are assuming that something is going to happen at this fete. So I think that this is definitely some foreshadowing. And I feel like it probably has a lot to do with the mines that have been planted around Darujistan by Whiskey Jack. I think that's maybe what it's alluding to, but I think more so Rake than Baruch, though. But Baruch, in his wisdom and how intelligent he is kind of catches on to that pretty quick. I don't know if you caught that during that section. Like, Rake is almost expecting something to happen, but Baruch, for whatever reason, feels like he's already handled it, but is catching on to the fact that Rake is anticipating something.
Yeah, I think something for sure is going to happen. Yeah, I guess I didn't even think of the mines, but that's a good point. Are they finally going to go off, or is it going to be something else?
Right. Yeah. It's just these last 2 chapters, maybe 2 or 3 chapters, have just been like so anticipatory. Like, I just come on already, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but like, goddamn, Erickson is doing a fantastic job of holding the suspense and the anticipation. It's like when you're a kid waiting for Christmas. Like, it's 2 or 3 days away, and you're so ecstatic to wake up that morning. Like, I'm super excited to see the end of this book, I guess, or potentially the series.
Yeah. Well, let's start with one book here. Let's finish that.
Yes, that is true. Let's finish this one. But yeah, I just thought that was an interesting piece of, information that I kind of gathered about Rake, but also at the same time, like, Baruch, on top of telling Rake that he's got things handled, which I don't think Rake thinks that Baruch does. But also, Baruch begins to explain to Rake that, there's going to be a lot of upset people attending if you come. And they're kind of like taking little like minor jabs at each other. Baruch kind of saying, yeah, only if you dress up as a Tistiande warlord, So there was definitely some humorous parts in this section.
Yeah, I guess I don't. It's been better than a week since I've read this chapter, so I'm trying to remember, but I guess I don't remember. I guess picking up on that humor myself. I did like, when he's, they're talking about Icarium, and Rake kind of takes over that conversation. I thought that was kind of neat, because he was there.
Right. He was there explaining everything about his interaction. So I don't know if Trell, I mean, in this section too, they don't say specifically what a Trell is, but they elaborate on it a little bit as they call it a company of the Trell Mappo. So my guess based on that information is that you would probably be correct in that it's some type of group of people.
Yeah, it must be. I mean, I don't know if it's like I don't know. I guess I'm not sure. I'm giving up on that thought right now. I don't know where I was going with it.
No, it's okay. Um, but I mean, I guess the only thing that I would add to about that little part about Rake and Ikarum and Osric is that it something about Caladan Brood could do to keep them apart. And then all it really was said was that it was an old argument. So I mean that tells me that Caladan Brood has been next to Rake for a long time. So there's definitely some history there. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that either. But it was just kind of a cool little segue, I guess, from the current moment to kind of be taken away and have Rake explained like, yeah, you should totally heed his warnings because, you know, I I've met him, you know.
It ain't a joke.
Right. I is it maybe this is maybe just me overthinking it, but did you get a feeling this whole like, wheel thing, the clock that Morellio is describing, did you get a little bit of like a small wheel of time of, just ages coming and going kind of a thing? Because I did.
Uh, a little bit, I guess. I almost thought more of like, it's gonna sound stupid at first, but like kind of like a cuckoo clock at first, but something obviously like much larger than that. You know,
Like a mechanical
year
sundial of some
passes,
kind.
yeah, and then the year comes to an end and it spits out a name. However it decides to do that, but that's kind of where my mind went.
Makes sense. Um,
Different thoughts.
yeah. I just for whatever reason it reminded me of the Wheel of Time with the whole, how they pretty much how he starts off every book. So just if there are, the love, hate, I forget what they all were, but if those just kind of like cycle again, or maybe I'm not understanding it, but when that age of moon's tears comes again.
Maybe it'll be a little bit different.
Right. Right. Maybe it'll be a little bit different. But yeah. And then I think this is also another small subtle hint of Krupp being the eel, is because Krupp tells Roald to give him a message from the eel. And that message essentially tells Baruch that they will meet on the eve of the fete, which I believe would be later on in the day that is currently in the chapter, and that the eel finds shared information and cooperation intriguing. So, because I know we touched on that a little bit last chapter, where, Baruch is attempting to or threatening to expose Circle Breaker, and then Krupp starts his fucking profusely sweating stuff again. And then is all like, I will talk to him on your behalf. So I know that's kind of
Right. That's
last.
I was watching for that
Yeah.
this time, and he was profusely sweating again. Like you had pointed out. So I was like, all right, it's a good catch, a good detail.
Yeah. But it just, he's nervous. He wants to keep a secret to himself and kind of keep up the strings, the puppet strings, so to speak. But um I guess the only other thing that I had for this section was the very, very end of it. Rake suddenly, leaves, and Baruch didn't have time to think about him leaving, but to us, the reader, the author tells us that it was Baruch's first mistake. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, why would the author reveal this to us? Because I find it really interesting. Like, is Rake about to start shit? Or maybe not necessarily start shit, but for whatever mysterious plan is he setting in motion? Is he going to instigate the killing of council members that are in favor of neutrality with the Malazine Empire? Will Turban Orr be taken out before Morellio or Rallic can get to him? Like what is Rake up to right now?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure.
But
Good thoughts, I think.
yeah. Because what luck would it be if Turban Orr was already taken out before Rallic could heal up, and Morellio doesn't have to face him.
That would be some luck then, yes.
Not that, Morellio or Rake or Rallic are, you know, coin bearers, so to speak, but they are protecting him, so to speak.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think that it's, too far fetched to say that some of Crocus's luck is an extension of himself to others around him. But yeah.
No, I don't think that's a stretch either.
Yeah, that was just my thought. It was good to see Mamet alive and well, so to speak. And I guess the only other thing that I could think of to talk about was Mamet knew that Crocus was the coin bearer this whole time. That's what he tells Baruch when Baruch is all dumbfounded when Mamet brings up Crocus's name.
Yeah, I was wondering why he was like nervous about asking, on that. It didn't I guess I didn't quite pick up on that. I was like, well, why would he be nervous about it?
Right. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I think that I guess I don't really know what Baruch's stance on Opon is, I mean, outside of the fact that the coin bearer needs to protect Jin, so I would assume that Baruch's ideas and, maybe way of life align with Opon a bit. I guess Opon just seems to be this kind of overlaying character or god that we don't really get a whole lot of perspective or motivations from. We just kind of have to see what it is that they are doing with the people they're influencing.
It's just kind of, I don't want to say there, but
I mean, that would make
yeah.
sense. But yeah, I hope that it, maybe goes into a little bit as to how Mamet figured it out,
Yeah, that would be neat to see. Did he come across some sort of vision, or what was it?
Right. Yeah, outside of that, those are all my thoughts on this particular section. Thought it was very well written, and it was nice to kind of see more of the dynamic between these two characters.
Yeah, it almost kind of feels like a married couple a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, they do kind of squabble a bit. Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll have to see where that goes. Anything else you wanted to add here for that section?
Not at all, no.
All right. Well, this next one will go pretty quick. A woman who had a shaved head and a long robe ran screaming from the gates. Adjunct Lorn stepped out of the way and let the priestess through. The whole city was partying like it was 1999, and it overflowed beyond the walls of the city itself into a worry town. She rubbed her knife wound. The barrow seemed to have slowed the healing process. She approached the gate to the city and noticed that only one of the two guards was paying attention to her, though it was a quick glance as his focus returned to the rest of the mob. She could feel Whiskey Jack and the rest of the squad were in the city. She made her way towards the lower city.
I don't necessarily have any thoughts on this particular section. It kind of sounds like the Fete is starting to get a little rambunctious, and we know that she's on our way into Darujistan.
Yeah, sounds like it's a bender here. Things are getting a little wild. People running through the streets, screaming. Everybody's probably getting drunk. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I didn't really have any thoughts either.
All right.
It's kind of a setup piece, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. For
Or
I believe this next
just kind
section.
of showing the setting maybe more so, but
Yeah.
yeah, take it away.
Cool. Circle Breaker pushes himself from the wall and walks a slow circle on the cobblestones, pausing to adjust his helmet. The other guard with him asks if he's feeling anxious. Circle Breaker plays this off by explaining that there was a riot a couple years back. The other guard, an older man, explains that he was there for that and remembers it well, and observes that this is not Circle Breaker's regular post. Circle Breaker explained that he's filling in for a friend and his usual shift is at the Despot's Barbican. Circle Breaker shifts his helmet again, hoping that the unseen eyes had seen his signal. The woman who had passed through had matched the eel's description perfectly. The older guard squints up at Despot's Barbican and admits that it's a grisly shift. He starts grumbling about how hard/long they have been working, and worst of all, they are Empire agents in the city. Circle Breaker agrees and adds that it doesn't get any better. The older guard begins to complain about not being able to join his family at the fete because after this he'd have to go stand around a bunch of council members. Circle Breaker smiles to himself as this is exactly the station that the eel wanted him to be at. Taking the opportunity, Circle Breaker places a hand on Baruch's, which is the older guard's name, shoulder and offers to take Baruch's next position. Baruch smiled and thanked Circle Breaker exuberantly. The only thing that Circle Breaker wants in return is sometime off in the future. Baruch tells him that whatever he wants is his, and then comes to the realization that he doesn't know his name. Circle Breaker tells Baruch his name. I'm like, God damn it, why can't we fucking know his name too? The level of suspense around this character is driving me fucking crazy. And I've got a feeling he's going to be throughout this story the whole time as some minor character that gets mentioned here and there. Like, I feel like that's what it's going to come to. Like, it's going to be like this one big, God damn it, it was him, you know?
Yeah, I want to know who it is too. Like, so this other character gets to know who it is, but we don't. Like, come on.
Right, just fucking tell me already.
I want to know.
Yeah.
But imagine in due time we will find out.
Right. And again, here's another hint of Krupp, right, being the eel, is how would he be able to convey in Lorn's description to Circle Breaker? Because the only interaction from anybody from Jerujistan had with Lorn was where?
I'm kind of drawing a blank here.
The Gedrobi Hills. Who interacted with Lorn? Yeah. So Krupp, granted, didn't get a long look at her before she rendered him unconscious by knocking him off his ass. Literally.
And onto his own, off one ass onto the other.
Right. So, yeah, I don't know. The level of suspense around Circle Breaker is like, I just want to know who he is.
Give it to us.
Give it. Do it now. I guess those are the only two things that I had. I think that it's kind of convenient that Circle Breaker got this opportunity to take over for Baruch's station at the fete, which from what I understand is Lady Simtel's estate. I didn't really synopsisize that too well, but it sounds like that is where his next station was. So Circle Breaker will be there in his stead.
Yeah, I don't think that was by accident.
You think it was Opon influencing?
I think it was influenced somehow. Somebody's pulling some strings.
I mean, would you say that Krupp / the eel would be on the side of Opon?
That I don't know about, I guess. I'm not really sure. I kind of almost feel like Krupp or the eel is going to be try to be on whichever side is winning. So whatever happens, he can make a play either way, just to keep living, I guess.
I mean, is there a clear winner at this point?
I don't know how how you feel on that side of things. But
I mean, I don't think there's a clear winner at this point of the game, but a lot of his actions are, I guess, in lieu of protecting the coin bearer, which we know is directly influenced by Opan. So I would assume that he, like Baruch, has some similar interests as far as protecting Jerujistan from the Malazan Empire. And the Malazan Empire would not be too heavily fond of Opan being on their enemy's side, so to speak.
yeah, that's a good point.
Like I mentioned before, I think it's hard to really understand Opan's motivations because we don't get it directly, but there's got to be a reason why he's influencing Crocus, or rather,
Yeah, we just don't really know the end game, I guess, yet.
No.
I'm sure once it's revealed, it's probably going to be like, oh, maybe I should have seen that coming.
Maybe, or it won't be as big of
or maybe not.
Yeah, who knows? I guess we'll just have to raffle. Keep reading.
That's right.
But yeah,
I can do that. I can keep reading.
Only after we finish our episodes, though.
Yes.
Cool. Well, with that, I'm cool to move on.
Since everyone was getting wild outside on the streets, inside was pretty much empty. An old woman watched from behind the counter. 3 men sat at a table in the corner. One of the men told her to take a seat and join the game. Lorn enters here at some point and sees the 3 men in the table in the corner playing a game. And she replies that she doesn't gamble, but that isn't what they meant. So she takes a seat and asks for their names. They introduce themselves, and she says she's impressed with their intel and asks after the sergeant. Fiddler says he's out making the rounds and should be back in like 10 minutes or so. They have the back room of this, quote, rat trap and dug under the wall into an abandoned house, so they have an escape route. She figures out that Fiddler is the saboteur, Mallet is the healer. They go back to their card game making new rules. They are using a deck of dragons. Lorn asks if Fiddler is a talent. Should he be using that deck? He basically tells her to fuck off and mind her own business. They've been playing for 5 years and have not had any problems, which is kind of a ballsy thing to say. If she wants in just to say so, he'll even give her the first card. It's the throne inverted, and she owes them each 10 gold. How lucky. That is a year's salary. Also, it is what they call the Empire Guilt coin, paid to the families once they are confirmed dead. Lorn feels someone behind her. It is Whiskey Jack. Whiskey Jack says, "Welcome to Jerujistan. Here's the report. We're still trying to contact the Assassin's Guild. All the mining is done and ready to go, and we've only lost 1 member so far. We've been pretty lucky. Oh, one other thing, there are Tisty Andy in the city hunting us. That doesn't interest Lorn a whole lot. At the moment, she wants to know who it is they lost. It is the recruit, Sari. She's been missing for a few days. Lorn says that they don't know for a fact if she's dead then. Whiskey Jack asks if there's a problem. She's only a recruit. Some thugs probably offed her in a back alley somewhere. Lorn says, actually, she was a spy and a really good one. A thug didn't kill her, and she's not dead. She's hiding because she knows I would be looking for her. Been looking for her for 3 years. Whiskey Jack says if she hadn't kept all this information to herself, things could have been arranged. But since she didn't share this, she's on her own. Lorn says she is the adjunct of the Empress. The mission is under her command now, and there will be no more of this independent crap. Whiskey Jack will take orders from her from now on. Whiskey Jack accepts and asks what the orders are. Lorn says she ain't fucking around. She doesn't care how mad he is. They need to talk in private. Whiskey Jack takes her to the back room to talk.
Do you get a sense of mutiny here?
I get the sense that Lorn does not really like what she's seeing.
I don't know. I guess just the level of disrespect that everybody gives her is just crazy.
Yeah.
They're not taking her seriously at all at this point. But
No, mind your own business. Like that's kind of like not something you say to somebody in her position. I don't think.
No, not at all. Not at all. And nor does Lorn do anything about it. You know,
And maybe she should have.
maybe,
Um,
but I mean, she's,
just to kind of crack down a little bit.
yeah, but I mean, what is she really going to do? I mean, she's not a sorceress from what I understand. She has something that can deflect sorcery, but in itself, she's still human.
I guess I was, more in the way of like, telling them that they need to respect her or something like that. But that's also kind of one of those things like I don't think these guys are going to respect somebody that hasn't earned it from them. Like it's not something that's going to be just given away because you say so. Like you're going to have to work for it.
Well, right, and also, putting myself in, the ninth squad's shoes here, right? Like at this point in the story, they've uncovered that the, basically the plan to sabotage the Bridgeburners is coming from the Empress herself, which if you're looking at the, the right hand woman of the Empress, are you, knowing what you know, going to just be all compliant? No, you're not.
Yeah, you're right. You're probably going to be standoffish like these guys were.
Right. Yeah, they're going to be pretty defensive. And I mean, like, even making the quip about like, oh, he an inverted throne. And now you owe us each 10 gold, a year's salary. Also, the Empire Gilt coin paid to the families once they're confirmed dead. Like, if that's not fucking sarcasm, I don't know what else is. But I just thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, it was a pretty good moment. Just kind of like just throwing a middle finger up there a little bit.
Yeah. I feel like most of some of Lauren's thoughts, while they are not really heard in this particular section, the next section does have quite a bit of what she has to say about current events. But I guess I didn't really have a ton for this particular section outside of just the level of defiance that they were showing her.
Yeah, I didn't really have anything either. So I mean, yeah, we can move on here. I'm ready for you.
Sweet. Lauren reaches down to the bed's top blanket and tells Whiskey Jack that there is blood on it. Whiskey Jack explains to Lauren that a soldier that one of his men had a brush with a Tisti Andi assassin and that he'll recover. Lauren is in disbelief as she believes that all the Tisti Andi are with Caladan Brood in the north. Elaborating further, Lorn disbelievingly tells Whiskey Jack that the Lord of Moonspawn has left and is now hunting down Malzahn soldiers. She ends her statement by saying it was highly unlikely. Whiskey Jack scowls and tells Lauren that they had a scuffle on the rooftops with at least a dozen Tistiande, and that it's likely that they've made alliances with Jerujasan's rulers, thus attacking the Assassin's Guild so that Whiskey Jack and his squad could not make contact, which has worked so far. Lorn, still with doubt, questions Whiskey Jack as to why they haven't attempted the assassinations themselves. Whiskey Jack explains that he's way ahead of her, as he has his man negotiating to work as private arms for a highbrow at this evening's fete, explaining to Lorn that anyone who is anybody will be there, even Jerujasan's mages, rulers, and councilmen. Capping off by explaining that his men have enough munitions left over to make this a party that Jerujasan will never forget. Lauren battles her frustration. Still indignant about the Atistiande, she finally asks Whiskey Jack why would someone hire them. Whiskey Jack smiles cynically and tells her that there will be city guards there, but they won't have a barghast. Who wouldn't want a barghast there to look over things? It's what makes the nobility drool at the level of protection they'd feel. Whiskey Jack admits that it's a risk, but asks Lauren if she has something better in mind. Lauren could see the challenge in his tone. After some thoughts, she finally admits to Whiskey Jack that his plan is sound. She then asks whose estate this fete will be held at. Whiskey Jack explains that it's some woman named Simtel, and she apparently is quite a looker and in cahoots with several council members. Lauren simply says, very well, and proceeds to tell him that she'll be back in a couple of hours, as she has some things to take care of. Striding to the door, Whiskey Jack calls upon the adjunct, and as she turns to his attention, Whiskey Jack reveals a tunnel that will lead her to a shack that will allow her access to the Daru district. Lorn was irritated and simply said it was unnecessary and then left the room. Quick Ben emerges from the tunnel. Quick Ben tells Whiskey Jack that she had almost walked in on him. Whiskey Jack says, nah, I wouldn't have let her. Anything on Kalam? Quick Ben says no, and that Kalam was running out of patience. Quick Ben then asks Whiskey Jack thinks that Lorn was fooled. Whiskey Jack laughs and explains that Lorn was reeling. Quick Ben then mentions that Paran said Lorn was going to drop something off, and if she did. Whiskey Jack says that she did not. Quick Ben responds by saying things are getting tight. The door opens and Trots walks in. Whiskey Jack asks him if he had success, and Trots nods. Basically, through this whole interaction with Lorn and Whiskey Jack, she is frustrated only because she, the entire time mentally, is complimenting Whiskey Jack because she would have done damn near the same things that he is telling her. But on top of that frustration, she also is in disbelief that the Tistiande are in Jerujistan, which we as the readers we know that's true. But Lorn has no fucking idea because the last that she had been reported was that they were still in the north.
Surprise.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Yeah, kind of a big one.
Yeah. But it's just funny the level of like Lorn isn't being humble at all. And I don't understand why she's got such a big head, especially when it comes to Whiskey Jack. Is it simply because he's outplayed her by essentially doing the same thing that she would anyway? Or is it simply just because she's full of pride? And what like this seems to be like a completely different Lorn that we experienced when she was traveling with Tool. You know, like Lorn kind of seems like she's the big bad bitch again, you know?
Yeah, some, but some of it seems like it's a pride thing to me. That is kind of how I view it to some extent.
Like, I'm the adjunct of the Empress, you will respect my position.
Yeah, like she's gonna take care of this and make sure she's recognized for it. And I think she's trying to, I guess I don't know, is she gonna get some out of it? Her own slice of the kingdom? Probably not, but some sort of reward to look good.
Yeah, I suppose. I just, again, it goes kind of back to the previous section. You know, there's a little bit of defiance there. And some of the, alongside of the thoughts that she has is in, Whiskey Jack kind of challenging her with his tone. Her thoughts surround Whiskey Jack and his, demotion to sergeant, hoping that his demotion would break him. She feels this way based on the Bridgeburners' reputation at Pale. Whiskey Jack had stood at the side of Dasim Ultor and would not hesitate to challenge Lorn's every command. So the idea is, from what I understand from Adjunct and Empress Lucine, is that Whiskey Jack, also around during the time of the old Emperor, was also at the side of Emperor's like first sword, I think is what they call him, which I would assume is just kind of like the director of defense or whatever the fuck that title is at the White House.
Sure.
Whiskey Jack was pretty much right under him and would sit there and argue battle tactics with Dasim Ultar. So Lucine and Lorn's, I guess, more or less plan to demote him to sergeant, they had hoped that it would break him. But I think part of her frustration is that it didn't seem to have broken him.
Yeah, he definitely seems like it's more bend than break.
Right. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I think Whiskey Jack's doing good. I don't have any complaints about him as a character. I don't see any
No,
weaknesses, so to speak.
I don't feel like we've got a ton of time in his head though either.
No. But I think given this newish information, it kind of shows how adaptable he's been given the circumstances.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's very adaptable, and it seems like he's the guy. If you need to switch tactics, he's not going to be afraid to do it.
Right.
If something's not working, change it. And I think he's that guy.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, part of it, Whiskey Jack not breaking plays along with Lucine and Ajak Lorn, but really kind of walking on eggshells, especially with Dujek, because Dujek and, his whole squad are very loyal to the idea of Bridgeburners. And that is also something that she thinks about. So I think that Lorn finds herself in a precarious position because while she still needs these guys to be used as tools, she also knows that eventually there's, they're going to be eliminated, or the plan is to have them taken out. So it's just a very fine line that I don't even know how I would be able to handle that type of situation if I was in Lorn's shoes.
Yeah, it's more responsibility than what I would want to deal with.
And this is more of a funnier moment, but when Quick Ben comes out of the tunnel and is all like, Whiskey Jack, she had almost walked in on me. It just reminds me of a teenager being walked in on by their mom, is just, for some reason, that's what came to mind. I don't know why.
Whoops.
I made a comment earlier about using sorcery for that kind of stuff a long time ago.
You certainly did.
Mm-hmm. See? So I'm not wrong.
You are not wrong.
Another thing that came to culmination.
For some reason, I thought there was more coming there from what you were going to say.
Nope.
And then I realized it wasn't.
Nope, I'm done.
Yeah, you would be.
Okay, back on to serious stuff. So
we can have our fun there for a minute.
Yeah, we got to get it in there real quick.
That's what she said.
Oh, ba-doom.
All right. Like my thought was, is he wondering like if she knew he was there? Was kind of my thought.
Gotcha.
What were you thinking?
I mean, basically everything that was explained about being hired, him telling Lorn that they have somebody working on getting hired at Lady Simtel's estate. That doesn't sound like the plan that Whiskey Jack had said to Paran. So was this an attempt to fool the adjunct? You know what I mean? Like that, I guess both of those aren't aligning. So I don't know if that's what they mean by fooled, or if this is just an extension of that plan that was given to Paran. But
interesting.
Either way, I don't have a good feeling about it.
I don't really have anything to add to that other than, yeah, that would it certainly seems precarious and uneasy, doesn't it?
It does. So, and that kind of brings me into maybe a little bit of similar, because Whiskey Jack asks Trots if he had success, and Trots nods. So, what is it that Trots had success with? It could be hundreds of things. I'm assuming it has something to do with the plan that wasn't discussed with Lorn, or this may pertain to the being hired for the guard. Like, is Trots the one that was sent to go see if they could get hired? I guess it's hard to decipher which plan is true. And if that is the case, then why did they fool Lorn with? So kind of counterpoint to my last observation. I feel like there's a lot of information here that could either be related or tied together, or they are combating each other. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I don't know what to make sense of it.
Something else we'll just have to wait and see on.
I think so. Yeah. But I guess with that, do you want to move on? Did you have anything else to add to this section?
I did not have anything else to add.
Gotcha.
All right. Crocus and Apsalar watch from the top of the tower, looking every now and again at the party going on in the city. Despite the celebration, everyone realized their place between Moonspawn and the Malazan Empire. The city seemed on edge. Crocus commented that from above, the city didn't seem as impressive. Though Apsalar said it's one of the biggest she's ever seen, she thinks it's as big as Unta. Crocus says that's the capital, right? She says yes, but she's never been there. Crocus thinks she's being weird and asks how she could know how big the city is then. Apsalar has no answer. He remembered something Call said, her being possessed. There were two sets of memories fighting for dominance in her head. His thoughts went back to his uncle and if he had shown up yet, and he almost felt a little guilty for escaping Mies and Neralta. He sat along the wall at the top of the tower and looked at the dead body near him. Yet he never felt in danger. Apsalar asked if they were waiting for dark. Crocus nodded. Apsalar asks if they'll look for Chalice then. He says yes. The rest of the family will be at the fete, and getting into the estate should be easy since they have a massive garden that resembles a forest. She asks if he'll be recognized once he joins the guests. Also, there will be a lot of people. It might take hours to find her. He replies he'll think of something, and he will be dressed up as a thief, and everyone will be in costume. She asks what she's supposed to do. Just hide in the bushes? Crocus snaps a little bit and says maybe Uncle Mallet will be there, then everything will be okay. They'll figure out how to get her home. That is what she wants, right? Apsalar says she misses her dad. Crocus isn't sure if she's trying to convince herself or him. Apsalar says she's fine and is managing to keep things together. There's something inside her helping her stay in control, but when she gets scared, it protects her, and she doesn't mean to push him away. That last sentence or two was written much better than how I summarized it. It was quite a good bit of writing.
So, what was it that was better written than summarized? Like, what about her being protected?
Just how she like described it. I don't know. It was just really well done. Just a good description, a good visual, I guess, on it. I liked it a lot.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I did.
But this, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
This is where I said we would maybe talk about something later. You know, the costumes or whatever, because you know, he said he's not really going to be in costume, but he's going to be dressed up as a thief, right? Everybody's going to be in costumes and all this and that. So I can't remember exactly how we were talking about it, but I knew I remembered something about costumes.
Gotcha. So do you think that Krupp and all of those guys will dress as thieves as well?
I don't know what they're going to do. I am not sure.
Huh. Do you think that I'm curious as to what is protecting her when she gets scared, like protecting her thoughts. And also the other side of that. So that tells us that during Sari's possession, Cotillion had been to Unta. So I know that at the very beginning of the book, Paran goes home for a little bit. So was she stalking Paran?
Maybe.
It's just a thought that came out to me just now.
It's always weird how that happens when they just kind of pop into your head like that.
It does, yeah. So does this mean that, like, in the middle of this giant party, like, Crocus, dressed as a thief, is going to pull Chalice aside and then what? Talk to her?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he's got a very good plan thought out here, does it?
Not at all. Not at all. But it doesn't really.
He's he's definitely winging it.
Yes, he's definitely winging it. And he still doesn't answer Apsalar's question. Like, where is she supposed to be? I mean,
Yeah, I mean he definitely doesn't really give a shit, does he?
it doesn't seem like he
He's
really
just
does.
no, he's just kind of worried about himself.
Right. He definitely wants to confront Chalice for, you know, putting him on the list for the high gallows.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks. It was nice of you. I appreciate it.
Right. Bitch. But yeah, I guess I don't have any other really huge questions. Another thought that's kind of coming to my head as I'm thinking about it is just this whole protecting her thing is got me rattled again. And I'm wondering if it's possible that maybe, Riga, again, I'm gonna bring this back. She's a seer, right? So maybe she foresaw Sari's possession, and before she died, I know she did something. I feel like that's what made me think that she was also in there. Um, by the way that she talked and the eyes appearing old and shit like that. But that could also have been Cotillion too. But what if Riga gave her some type of mental something, and that is what's protecting her now?
That could be kind of like a I guess a parting gift of some sort. I guess
Yeah,
before I die, take this.
right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I keep getting hung up on Riga. I should just let her die, even though I don't know. I still feel like something is there.
Yeah, you may. I mean, we'll see if you're onto something. You
Well,
could very well could be.
very well could be. But outside of that, that's all the thoughts that I had for this section.
The only other thing I really had was just, they got a garden that could be mistaken for a forest. Like they must have a pretty big place.
Oh yeah. Yeah, these are hoity toities.
So that was the only other thing I really had. So you can take it away here whenever you're ready.
Wait. Within the shadows of the stairwell, Sarat studied the two figures. She had embraced her corralled Galen Warren and put layers of defensive wards around her. No more of this invisible enemy shit. And if they wanted her, they would have to show themselves and then she'd kill them. As for the corn bearer and the girl, where could they get possibly escape to? In this tower? Preparing for her attack, she unsheathed her daggers. With her ward protecting her back, she started to advance. Just then, she felt the knife point under her chin and underneath her left shoulder blade. A voice close to her ear tells her to give Rake his warning, as Rake and her will only get it once. It was a voice she recognized. The coin bearer shall not be harmed, and the games are done. Try again, and Sarat would die. Furious, Sarat calls this thing a bastard, and that Rake will be angry. The unknown assailant tells her that it will be in vain, and to deliver the message to Rake. Slowly, the knife point under her chin is removed, and she nods in acknowledgement to this. She tells the assailant that this will not be forgotten. A low chuckle is heard, and in their reply, they say, "Compliments of the prince, Sarat. Take it up with our mutual friend." The daggers left her flesh. Sarat sheathes her daggers and snaps open her corralled Ghislaine Warren and vanishes. Okay. So I could have sworn that the prince is Caladan Brood. From what I can recall, Crone did inform him of the coin bearer that night in the tent. And then after their conversation, he bolted. So, and I know that Brood has some types of feelings towards Rake. But I could have sworn that he's the only character. Oh no, Prince Kaaz.
Kind of forgot about him.
Yeah. Compliments of Prince Kaaz. Take it up with our mutual friend. So Does that mean that somebody from the Crimson Guard is there, sent by Prince Kaaz? And to take it up with our mutual friend would be Caladan Brood or Rake? Yeah, there's just so much mystery in that section that I can't fucking make heads or tails of it, you know? And again, this is also part of the just huge amount of suspense in these last 3 chapters where I'm just like, oh my God, can I just have it already?
I know it's really ramping up here as we get towards the end of this book for sure.
Yeah, it's totally got me on the edge of my seat, and all I want to do is keep reading.
Yeah, it's hard to just put it down.
Yeah, I think that when we're going through Dead House Gates, like I said a couple episodes ago, I will probably be reading this in the background, so then that way I don't have to take it chapter by chapter. I could just read, and kind of get everything in a one fell swoop thing.
Yeah, you'll have to kind of. I wonder how that'll go for you.
I feel like I'd finish in a couple of weeks.
Like if I can't imagine it would cause any problems or anything, but I'm just.
It might give us some things to go back and talk about, but once we finish, I think that we can put this book to rest as far as the podcast is concerned, unless we're reading something in the books after that directly correlates to the Gardens of the Moon.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
But yeah, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this Prince and mutual friend thing here?
I guess I would like to know for sure. Like I guess I would be pretty confident you're probably right on Prince Kaz. But who's this person that keeps that snuck up on again gets a knife to her throat and somebody pretty talented.
Oh, right.
To be able to pull that off.
And do you think this is the same person this whole time?
Yeah, I kind of do because I don't know like the likelihood of multiple people messing with her. Like to me, that just doesn't seem to make much sense.
That is true. I would agree. I have a feeling. Yeah, when I read this section, I'm like, okay, so this person is clearly the one that has been fucking with her. So
that's my thought on it.
I mean, I don't even know what else it would be. I mean, who else could it be? I mean, again, this seems to be another player for protecting the coin bearer, as this is said, So it's funny because Baruch seems to be on the side. He's also protecting the coin bearer, but Rake isn't. But Rake and Baruch are, alliances. So there's just so many like things happening all at once here. Sometimes it's just hard to make heads or tail of it.
Yeah, it is. It's just kind of all over the place. It's kind of batshit crazy.
But it adds like a new level of understanding to this book, It's just like, while I understand what's happening, at the same time, like there's just so much mystery and things that have left to be revealed.
Yeah, there really is. Like, and things kind of keep getting added. We don't get a whole lot of resolve before something else gets added on.
No, not at all. Not at all. But all in due time. I've learned to trust the author and trust the book. Eventually things will get capped off and you just got to keep reading.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, when we get some really big boy chapters going on.
Right. Those might have to be 2-parters. We'll have to see how long we talk.
Yeah, but we'll just take it, one chapter at a time.
That's right. But yeah, those were my only 2 things that got me hung up on that section. Everything else kind of.
I don't think I've got anything to add to what you said or your points.
All right. Well, if you want to continue on, go for it.
This is probably my longest section, and I have probably the most to say about it. Crocus heard something. His hands went to his knives instantly. Apsalar asked what was wrong, and he tells her to be quiet. His heart was pounding. He says it's nothing, and he's, quote, ducking at shadows. They'll soon be off.
Oh, so ducking wasn't a autocorrect.
No, it was not.
Okay, good, good. Wouldn't it have been funny if they would have autocorrected it to fucking?
Yeah, it would have been funny.
But yeah, no,
I
okay.
think there's not much to say here, I think. But, he's obviously, Crocus he's antsy, he's jumpy, he's nervous, and I mean, he's ready to put his plan into motion, at least the part that he's got planned, and I guess he'll kind of figure it out the rest as he goes.
Right, and then he hears something, and then it's fight or flight at that point. But yeah, just sees nothing, sees shadow.
And if I remember right, I thought I remember thinking that it was Sarat watching them.
Well, I mean, I would imagine that it would have been
Maybe I'm not remembering that right.
it would have been the commotion of Sarat getting assailed again, or her, GTFOing.
Right. Yeah, that was kind of what I thought was her taking off, and maybe he was just hearing the dust settle, so to speak. On that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I feel like that's kind of how I remember things, but maybe not.
Gotcha. Well, should we move on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. It was the age of wind, struggling in his mother's wake. It was Raest's first lesson in power. Like the many ways of wind, the hunt for domination would shape his life. Raest's mother was the first to flee his shaping of power, proclaiming the sundering of blood, and thus cutting him free. He would dominate and must learn early that those who resist will be destroyed. While Raest feared community, pronouncing society to be the birthplace of tyranny, Raest hungered for it. The power he commanded insisted on subjects. His first thought was to subjugate other Jaghut, but more often than not, they either escaped him or he was forced to kill them. Into his path came the Amass, creatures who struggled against his will. The Amass themselves played the game of tyranny over their lands. They could not defeat him. He had rejoiced in the slavery of the Amass, feeling loved when they would worship him as God, building cities and temples for him to be worshipped. It was the Jaghut that he had been unprepared for. The Jaghut came in numbers as a community whose sole purpose was to destroy his empire, to imprison him. His lesson had been learned, and no matter what the world had become since his time, Raest was ready for it. His limb creaked at first. The effort of digging himself from the frozen earth had incapacitated him for a time. He felt ready to walk the tunnel into new land. He sensed the others, ones who had removed the ward and the traps of Omatos Falak. Perhaps his worshippers were still here and were awaiting him to walk out of the barrow. He could feel the finest far away, but that wouldn't stop him from recovering it. He could feel the absence of Omatos Falak in the world above. No one would be able to oppose him. Moving through the slush and mud near the entrance of the barrow, he explodes the barrow's barrier and in floods sunlight. The Jaghut tyrant exits the barrow and walks into the light. I don't know. I guess what I got from this section, which was pretty jarring at first to read, was that it was kind of like you know, how they always say that like when you're on the verge of death, you see like your life pass before your eyes, but just kind of like a reverse notion of that. He seems to be waking from his very deep slumber and is maybe having flashes of memories from what he did before he was imprisoned. This is kind of the sense that I get from this section. Talking about his mom and how he more or less comes into tyranny, um, talking about community and society and that being the birthplace of tyranny. and just how much Raest loves that shit, down to talking about enslaving the mass, even though they are no better, and down to finally when the Jaghut finally came and basically did something about him, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff. And one thing I caught as you were reading, it just kind of came to me now, or as you were reading, because I definitely didn't think of it while I read this chapter, but it says Raest fears community, but yet he wants to rule over everybody, and have that community under him. It just seems kind of ironic to me.
It is ironic. Do you think it's because in a community where he is just a civilian, he has no control, but if he is a tyrant, he has control over that community? I mean, I feel like that's a pretty subtle way of, you know, kind of giving us a a good picture of what Raest is.
I don't know if maybe control is the word I would use, but if he can project his, like fearsomeness, and kind of bend these people to his will through fear, but yeah, so that, there isn't an uprising against him, everybody's too scared to do anything. He's above them, then, is kind of the sense that I get. He wants to be better.
Gotcha. Which I think is funny.
It's kind of hard to put into
Right.
words.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It just, as you bring that up, it brings me back to some of the few conversations that, like Lorn and Baruch and Dujek and Whiskey Jack, Tattersale, those conversations around previous empires. And I think the one thing that Erickson maybe really trying to drive home is the fact that the previous emperor, oh my god, I can't talk. Emperor, he went above. I guess he went against the grain as far as like leadership goes, because in those conversations it was quite heavily described that all other emperors ruled with kind of like an iron fist. They commanded fear, whereas the previous emperor commanded loyalty. So I think that is kind of maybe one of the bigger takeaways from this book, is that, Lorne and Lucine are having such a hard time getting people in line, is because I don't know. I'm assuming she's probably driving for fear rather than loyalty. But if your predecessor is commanded loyalty, then you're going to have followers that you reign over that are not loyal to you. So I think that she's probably got a little bit of a bigger hurdle. And yeah, just the juxtaposition between this Jaghut tyrant and the previous emperor and even current events is just, it's all just such a beautiful spider web, I guess, is all I can say.
Yeah, I feel like it would be harder to rule through fear. Just, you gotta, I suppose, even if you're not ruling through fear, you still got to watch your back. Somebody's probably going to try to, stab you in the back. But I feel like it would be more likely if you're using fear as your tactic versus just doing what's right and good for the people.
Right. Yes, exactly. It's just it was a nice contrast, you know, as far as Raest is concerned here. But it was also kind of cool to just kind of get like a real brief. Well, it wasn't really brief. I made it brief, but a nice good a nice good understanding on like where Raest comes from, which I feel like is something you don't get too often in this book. I feel like with when it came to Raest, we got a pretty good backstory as we were introduced to him, but at the same time, like we've known about the Jaghut for what, 200, 300 pages at this point, but we're now just finally being introduced to him as like a walking, breathing character.
Yeah, we've been hearing about him for a while, and yeah, now he's here. I guess we'll see how long he sticks around for.
Yeah. I think it was super fucked up because it kind of is insinuating that he killed his mom. Did you catch that, or did you feel the same way?
Um, I guess it's, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't specifically remember.
I mean, I in my summary I wrote, and I tried not to copy it word for word, but like the way that Erickson writes is just so beautiful. So I feel like this is one of those summaries that included what was said, but it goes, Raest's mother was the first to flee his shaping of power, proclaiming the sundering of blood and thus cutting him free. So the way that I'm interpreting that is that his mom, Raest's mother, is essentially observing Raest kind of start to shape his power, or, you know, interested in not very nice things. And so I'm assuming proclaiming the sundering of blood is some type of uh, parental alienation of their child in some way, shape, or form, where they just, fuck you, you're on your own. I'm not helping you anymore. And then the very next section, he was like, he would dominate those who would resist, because those who would resist will be destroyed. So I don't know if that's like related or if that's a segue, but it just, those two sentences together kind of made me feel like he maybe destroyed his mom or killed her, but it also could be that, it's simply just saying that Raest was abandoned fairly young.
I think it's certainly a possibility. I mean, he does not seem to be a very nice person.
No,
So
no.
it doesn't sound like there's a lot of remorse in him. So wouldn't surprise
Well, you
me
know what they
if he did kill his mom.
right. Well, you know what they say about three people who don't have very good things to say about you, and that it must be true. And we have many characters not talking very nice things about Raest here.
Yes, that is true.
But yeah, I don't know. It was definitely more beautifully written than I did it justice. But I feel like this is probably not my favorite section in this chapter, but it's definitely high up there.
Yeah, it's a good entry for sure.
Yeah, and just the whole him blowing the barrier and flood sunlight. I don't know. I just get like a Jesus rising from the dead after 3 days type of vibe from that. But
You're I get a little different visual in my head, and I know you're not gonna get it because you haven't seen Lord of the Rings. So you gotta watch those
I'll get
movies.
there.
Um, I think of the Battle of Helm's Deep when so there's a in the Two Towers there's a battle called Battle of Helm's Deep, and it's I don't remember how many. I don't know. We'll say probably being generous, it's maybe 1,000 good guys versus tens, hundreds of thousands of orcs. Um, but the advantage that the good guys have is they're on top of a wall. They're just severely outnumbered. Um, but they have some like kind of like I guess suicide bomber orcs, for lack of a better term. They've got like this bomb that they build, and there's a small like culvert where like a little creek runs out in between, like underneath the wall, and so they've got these orcs carrying this bomb, running with this bomb to get it there because that's the only weakness in the wall to blow the wall up, and they do, and so that like the wall coming down, blowing up, blowing out is kind of what I imagine Raest coming out of the barrel.
I mean, that makes sense based on your description. Um, that sounds, yeah, I would envision that too. Was that in the first movie or was that in the second or third one?
That is the second.
Okay. I've seen like bits and pieces of the first one. Honestly, I feel like memes have destroyed The Lord of the Rings for me because they're just so bad. Uh, just I don't know. It's that like video meme of Frodo lying in the bed. I'm assuming it's towards the end of the movie. Um, and all these people like come in, and without the sound, it looks really naughty, if that makes sense. Because like they shoot Frodo on the bed, and then they shoot people entering the room, and his face is just like, oh, you know. So it's
Yeah.
without context or audio, it looks really sexual. So
Yeah, I guess I've never thought of it that way, but I can see how you could see that.
so yeah, it's just I should have watched it many, many years ago before the internet ruined it.
Oh, they're still so good.
I'll have to give that a shot.
Just commit, 12 hours of your day one day and watch all three of them back to back to back.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to do that. So maybe winter is coming. So
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's coming.
hopefully with no White Walkers.
Yes, I can do without
Yeah,
those.
I'm good. But yeah, I guess those are the only things that I had to say about that section. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add, but
I do not. You ready to move
let's
on
do
here?
her.
All right. Crone rode the hot currents of air above the Gadrobi Hills. She cackled at the absurd amount of energy released, sending debris hundreds of feet into the air. This would be interesting, she thought. A blast of air from above threw Crone off her course. As she adjusted, she climbed higher for a better vantage. Looking down, she saw 5 ridged backs, but only one shone like fire. Magic and power rippled off the dragon wings as they silently flew over the terrain. While watching the red dragon, Crone bellowed, Solana Dragnaparek Tina Dracones. Eliant, Eliant, the day of the Tistiandi had come.
Hmm. I feel like there's so much compacted in here, but I don't really know how to make sense of it. I mean, at first I thought the amount of energy released was per sensing Raest, but now I almost kind of feel
I,
like it's the
you know,
dragons.
because I totally agree with you. I thought she was seeing Race break out of the tomb for sure. Like, I mean, that's how I interpret it.
I mean, unless it's like, again, it's a really short section, but I'm wondering if it's just like Crone is flying, and then all of a sudden she feels this big blast of power, and then debris is shot up in the air. That very well could be Raest.
I think it has to be. I mean, if it's coming up from the ground,
Right.
and that's got to be it.
Oh, okay, I got it. Yeah, okay. And then a blast of air from above threw Crone off her course. Okay. So yeah, it's just
Yeah,
intersecting, like, you know, looking looking up, she's able to see dragon wings. So yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So basically, out comes Raest, and in comes 5 ridged back dragons, one shining like fire. So yeah, maybe old drunk Call was right. Well, he clearly is.
yeah. You knew a thing or two about a thing or two.
Yeah, even though he was a drunk. I guess in the last few chapters we've had experiences with him. He hasn't been under the influence.
No, he's been pretty good.
Do you think they still get DWIs on their horsebacks?
I would think they don't give a shit. That is my take.
Probably not. That was a really, really bad dad joke. I am so sorry. I am ashamed.
No.
But yeah, what do you think it means of the day of the Tistiande has come? Do you think it's just like dragons have been in hibernation for all of these years? And, I mean, I know that the dragons and the Tistiande are not really related, but from what I understand, it sounds like the Tistiande have like enslaved is maybe a bad word, but commandeered the dragon's warrens.
They're probably gonna mess some shit up.
That's what I'm saying. The day of the Tistiande had come. Maybe this is what maybe this is like the opposite of what Rake was talking to about Baruch, when he was kind of giving off this very like depressing vibe of the Tistiande and just this like unwillingness to live, being that like, I don't know. It just kind of seems like they're sitting at house board, not really much excitement to look forward to. Just kind of going about their day-to-day tasks with like no real heart or drive for it. So maybe the releasing of the dragons is some type of, I don't know, something for the Tistiande.
I think it's something we'll probably get answered yet in this book. I think we'll get a conclusion on that, though.
I hope so. Yeah, because I feel like now that I've, we pretty much read what 92% of this book, that the moon and Gardens of the Moon has something to do with moon spawn. I'm fairly certain that is probably.
Yeah, I think so too.
But yeah, I guess should we move on to our last section here? I don't really have much else to say about that section. I'm glad Crone's not an annoying bitch in that one. But
that's actually what Crone stands for. That is the definition if you look it up. Annoying bitch.
Annoying bird bitch.
Yeah. Look it up. It's there.
Okay. Will do. It will do.
Well, you take us home here, buddy.
All right. Time for the home stretch. Raest emerged into the afternoon sunlight, seeing the landscape before him. He grunts and thinks to himself that it's not so different after all. Raest takes a huge breath of fresh air and raises his arms towards the heavens. He searched lightly with his power. Answers came back from the ground. No, he searched for higher sources of power. Yet he sensed nothing. He drove those senses into the ground, earth and bedrock, further down until he felt the sleeping goddess there, questioning the sleeping goddess if he would wake her, or if he should wake her. He decides that he won't yet, but does want to make her bleed. Raest makes a fist with his right hand, which drives a fissure through the bedrock. Feeling the gush of her blood, it was enough to make her stir, but not awaken. The line of hills lifted in the air as liquid hot magma rose into the air. The Jaghut smiles. He turned around, striding west toward the highest hill in that direction. His Finis lay beyond in that direction. From that vantage point, he could better locate his Finis. Halfway up the slope, he hears laughter. Just as the day darkened around him, he saw 5 enormous shadows sweeping up the slope. Then beyond the hill's summit, the sunlight returned. 5 dragons were in perfect formation. As they glide back in his direction, 4 were black and the other was red, twice as large as the others. Raest calls out, "Solana Redwings, elder-born and true-blooded Tyam, you lead soul-taken? I feel you all." He lowers his arms and mutters that he cannot enslave the red dragon, but he can destroy it. He narrows his eyes at the 4 black dragons. He calls them soul-taken, and taunts him with words of challenging him from the orders of another. I didn't quite get that, but I thought it was significant in some way. Raest goes on in an attempt to entice the 4 black dragons by explaining that Raest wouldn't lead them to their deaths, but to cherish them, giving them causes to believe in. Raest scowled as in his head he heard their answer, "So be it." The dragons passed by again, banking behind the hills to the south. Raest gathers his warren so powerfully that his flesh is ripping and falling away from his body. A long minute passes, and he whirls to his right to see Solana and 4 black dragons plunge over the summit of the hill. Raest screamed at the whirlwind of power battering him. As it bore down on him, the red dragon's jaws opened wide, and Raest screamed a second time, releasing his power. The Warren Starvalad Demelain, Kurald Galen, and Omatos Falak collided. Shards of rock, earth were flying through the air. Within the vortex of the Warren stood Raest. Feeling the lashes of sorcery from the dragons, violently, Raest slashes his Warren like a scythe. Blood stained the ground, and the dragon shrieked. Suddenly, from the right, fire batters Raest and knocks him through the air until he lands in ash that was once grass and dirt. He scorched from the fire. He reaches out with his right hand as sorcery lashes from it. The ground shook as Raest's sorcery slammed Solana into the ground, skidding the dragon down the slope. The tyrant's roar was cut short as a set of talons plunged into his chest, snapping through the bones. More talons flexed around him as a second dragon joined the first. Raest was taken airborne, and in his struggle, he dislocated his shoulder, finally finding the scaly leg that held him. Releasing his Warren into the leg, he shattered it. Raest laughs as he was flung away, and more bones snapped as he hit the ground. His power was absolute, and the vessel that carried it was irrelevant. Climbing to his feet, he whispers, "Now I deliver death." Like, fucking intense. Like, I probably read that section like 3 times. I just fucking loved it. It was great.
Yeah, he's a pretty big badass. Like, you're getting ripped apart by dragons, and then you know, how high in the air did they carry him before he ripped its leg off and fell to the ground and broke some bones? And he's just like, I don't really care.
Right. I'm gonna get up. And the power is absolute, but is the vessel that carried it was irrelevant. So like it's just this like is he like some type of body snatcher? He just like takes different bodies as a way of getting around. Like, I mean, maybe he is in some type of Barghast body. I don't know. I mean, he's said to have tusks, so I don't know if that. Yeah, that's weird.
I makes me wonder how Rake is going to stand up to him.
Yeah. I mean, he's battling 5 dragons. One is twice as big as the other 4. So, yeah. Yeah. I'm interested to see where this goes. Very cliffhangery type chapter. You know, just cuts off like right in the middle of this battle. Or maybe even not the middle, but you know, something just got started.
Kind of reminds me of Thanos a little bit.
Yeah, I get that. I get that sense too. I feel where you're going there on that.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to snap his fingers and make people disappear.
Yeah.
He's probably going to snap his fingers and snap some necks.
Right. I'm wondering how many of these dragons come out, if any of them do. You know, but he also, Solana, he knows he can't enslave Solana. But I'm assuming that means that he can enslave the other 4.
It's a good point.
So, yeah, where this is going, I no fucking idea.
Yeah,
But
they, like you said, they did leave it on a pretty big cliffhanger.
it's just, yeah, I don't even know how to describe how I imagined it in my head. You know, it's just like all 3 of these Warrens just colliding, and all 6 of these characters interacting with each other, just out for blood. You know, it's just a fight for survival. It it was just so beautifully written. Uh, Taking what I have in my mind and articulating it verbally is it was hard to do, but I
Yeah,
really
oh,
liked how I had it in my head. It was great. It was a good scene.
yeah, it was. I really liked, when he like winds up and punches the ground and creates this kind of like I imagine like a crevice, and and there's lava shooting up out of it and stuff. And yeah, it's cool. A lot of cool imagery for sure.
Yeah. Which you bring up a good point, or something that is related to that. And I know that he's trying to awaken or stir the sleeping goddess, but not awake her. So I don't know if all of that was like some type of euphemism for Mother Earth, or if there is actually a god, a goddess of the earth that is just kind of slumbering and letting its creation do what it's gonna do. You know, I know that this
Right.
is a polytheistic type of world, so I guess I don't know if he's referring to just kind of the quote unquote Mother Earth, or if there is legitimately like a sleeping Earth goddess. Um, so that part was really cool, and I think most people would just assume that it is a goddess of the earth that he's trying to wake up, like a very literal interpretation. But I think that what he's talking about here is just erupting Mother Earth and leaving it in a way that is a bit more disastrous than how he found it.
Yeah, it seems like he's just trying to create the chaos.
Right. Yeah, because he can, right? I mean, who's gonna stop him now? And he knows that.
And it was probably a pretty small taste of what he's capable of doing.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, it's really funny that we haven't known Raest very long, but he's kind of living up to expectations, right? Like
Oh
this is
yeah,
kind of
definitely.
what you can expect. But on the contrast, when it comes to why can't I say that name? God Jesus, I'm just gonna say Rake. Anomander
And
Rake.
Amanda.
Thank you. I don't know why I would say Anoman there. Anomander Rake. He, as we've talked about, like he really downplays himself. So like you kind of doubt what he is capable of. But on the other hand, you have Raest, who is so full of himself. Like we know what it is that he can do. We know what to expect from him as a character. But on the other hand, Rake, we're left doubting. But we're told that they could compete each other. Raest with a little bit more of an edge up, so to speak. But I just think that that was an interesting contrast that those two characters who are meant to battle are literally, as far as like their modesty and humility, are completely opposite.
Yeah,
So it
they're
does,
like two sides of the same coin.
right, conflict a little bit, which is funny because from what we're told so far is that they will have some type of encounter.
It's gonna be good.
It's gonna be big.
I
But
think so.
yeah, I guess the only other thing that like is really driving me crazy is this whole soul taken term. Is this like is this alluding to the Tistiandi taking the Starvalad Warren? The Starvalad Demelaine Warren, or is this something else? You know? Because I feel like soul taken comes up a few times throughout this book. And I feel like it's a term that like we don't quite have an explanation to, outside of some type of literal. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but Paran and or not Paran, but Pran and Karul in Krupp's dream, don't they call Tattersail soul taken?
I thought so.
Is it just Tissiande who have soul shifted into dragons? I don't know.
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's driving me crazy. Like I think about it every once in a while. I'm like, what is soul taken? What does that mean? Like
And
specifically.
obviously, we're not gonna like look it up.
Well, no, right, yeah, because we're not doing the spoilage thing. Which I'll
I'm
say
sure we'd
is,
run into something.
yeah, it's harder. It's really hard not to. I always think of that up. Have you ever seen How I Met Your Mother?
Not in quite a while. I never finished it. I don't
Okay.
remember how many seasons I got through.
Well, it's not like a huge spoiler or anything, but I mean, um, the there was an episode where they were trying to not like look at the Super Bowl results, like who won the Super Bowl, because they were for whatever reason unable to watch the Super Bowl together, and they all wanted to watch the Super Bowl together. So they had like TiVoed it or whatever, recorded it in some fashion, and they were like, okay, we just got to go throughout the day without reading any newspaper or any interweb or like any conversation about who won the Super Bowl.
It'd
So
be like
like I guess
impossible.
right, absolutely. With a game that big, like you're gonna find out in pretty much your first interaction. But they come up with all these like crazy schemes to like not see or hear anything, but still keep the tradition of how they watch the Super Bowl every year together. So I guess I just, in a more exaggerated way, that's how I feel about not spoiling any of the series. Like I have to be super careful. I don't look up anything online. Anything on Facebook I ignore that has Malazan in it, unless it's like Gardens of the Moon. But even that's a risk too. So, uh,
Yeah, though now we're getting towards the end of the book, I feel like it's less of a risk. But
right, yeah, yeah. So I just try to keep it to Gardens of the Moon struggle hard time. That's pretty much the
yeah,
only ones that I like look at. So yeah, just fucking epic way to end this chapter. Fucking epic way. Loved it.
yeah, it was good.
It was good.
It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. A lot of fun to read.
Yeah, and we at this point we've got like maybe a little under 100 pages left to read, something like that. So, um yeah, yeah,
We're in the home stretch.
we are definitely in the home.
Rounding rounding third base coming home.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I'm excited. But I don't know. I always get this weird like anxiety around finishing a book because I don't know where it's going to end and what state it's going to end in. But I guess the beautiful thing is like we're not waiting for the next one to release. We have
True.
we can immediately jump into the next one. So
Yeah.
and take another 6 or 7 months to read it.
Eh, we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. But yeah, our yeah, I guess I don't have anything else to add to that section or the chapter itself. It was a good
No,
chapter.
I don't think so. I've got nothing else to add either.
Sweet. That's all I have to say about that chapter, but we did record a couple of days ago our Prey podcast, but unfortunately we ran into some technical difficulties getting that edited.
Yeah, we recorded an episode on the movie that just came out on Hulu, Prey, Predator movie, and we had a guest, Dave from Xenomorphing a Hive Mind podcast, and we had a lot of fun talking and having that conversation, but we just ran into some technical issues that uh, prevented Justin from getting that out a little bit sooner, and kind of bled into this episode a little bit too.
yeah, so apologize for the technical difficulties all, but it seems like we should be good to go, and we'll hopefully get this episode up in a couple of days.
Definitely, and I guess we'll see what happens here with the next one. That might be not as long of a delay, but you're going to be a busy guy here this next week, so I guess I'm kind of planning on that we're not going to record here this upcoming week.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, moving and packing and closing and kids' school stuff and sports. Yeah, it'll probably be a couple of weeks before we can get this next chapter, chapter 21, episode 22 uploaded. But yeah, we'll get there as we near the end of the book of Gardens of the Moon. So I'm excited. I know that you're excited to finally wrap up this book. It seems like a really big accomplishment. I feel like
Yeah,
it takes
yeah,
a lot of patience for two people to read one chapter at a time, record their results, and then read the next one while, lifing, doing that life
yeah.
thing.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
But it's been fun.
Yeah.
It's still
It
fun.
it's definitely, I think that's kind of what makes it an epic quest. I
Agreed.
guess
Agreed.
with that, I'll let you go, sir.
All right, we'll be in touch. Take care.
Later, man.
See ya.
Bye.